Well, Archbishop Desmond Tutu has now been interred at the St. George's Cathedral down in Cape Town. Let's reflect on the life and legacy with Father Peter-John Pearson, Director of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference. Father, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Your impressions of the funeral this morning and how it felt watching us say a final goodbye to the Arch. Good evening.
Good evening, and it was a tremendous privilege to be in the cathedral, part of the praying group that prayed him into his rest. I think there were three things that really struck me about the funeral today. The one was that, in essence, there were bits of the funeral that reflected his dignity as an archbishop, that reflected his status as an icon of the struggle, but essentially it was the same funeral as anyone else would have. The same funeral for prince and for pauper. And so there we were, saying the same words, praying the same prayers, reflecting on the same readings, singing the same hymns that anyone, you and I, or anybody listening, watching, would have at their funeral. It was almost as if in this final moment there was a kind of liturgical democracy. The truth that he held throughout his life, that everyone is equal, that all people aspire to the same goals, that was reflected in the simplicity, the beauty, and the sameness of the burial service, just as anyone else would have. So there was something very poignant, very beautiful about him being buried in the way anyone else would be buried. And I really thought that spoke volumes of his life and his striving, of his ministry. That was the one thing. The second thing was, and I think church people know this so well, that the format of the service, the Eucharist, is something that speaks of two things. It's a crucifixion in the times of Jesus was an act of political power. It was there to disrupt the narrative of the powerful. This is incorporated into the service that we had today, and it is really about now remembering, not as the opposite of forgetting, but remembering as the opposite of dismembering, of bringing things together, of making things whole, of joining things. And what more beautiful tribute to the Archbishop, who spent his whole life doing exactly that, bringing wholeness, healing, bringing things together, bringing about new narratives of reconciliation and togetherness. What a beautiful tribute, an ultimate tribute, that this service reflected those theological principles. And then I think the third thing that really stuck out for me was in everything that was said and sung and prayed and done, this constant element of hope, that, he was a preacher of hope. He was an activist whose activism emphasized hope. And here in this farewell service, we were also holding high the banner of hope. So those three things, the kind of equality of service, the liturgical democracy, the remembering as an act of bringing together, and this hope that he spoke about and that we felt today will remain with me for all time.
And I'm sure, Father, it's going to remain with many people for all time, as well as we perhaps look ahead to 2022 without the Arch with us. And my last question to you, how do we try as a New Year's resolution not to forget what the Arch taught us as a country, a Archbishop resolution, if you will?
I think we just need to look around us. We just need to look around us at the grinding poverty, the enduring inequalities. We just need to look around us in a world that is where democracy is so fragile, where populism and narrow outlooks, nationalism, a disdain of the other, especially if the other is a migrant or a refugee. We just need to look around us and see those glaring realities to know that any human being who claims their humanity in any significant way can't but do something about it. We've heard quoted so often in these past few days that saying of the Archbishop that everybody can do make their little contribution in their area, and together, like a mighty wave, it can demolish any obstacle, any adversity. It's a beautiful image, a similar image to the one John Kennedy used in that famous speech at UCT about, every act of resistance from a million different sources will bring down the mightiest of oppressions. I think we just need to look around us and have the courage and the will to say, I can do my little bit, and I can join my little bit to what others are doing in the way civil society, for instance, has done in this country for decades. When we do that, when that's our resolution, and not wait for some big action to bring about change, but our little actions, when we do that, I think we would honor one who encouraged us to walk that path.
It's the courage to take the little actions. Those will translate into the big actions.
Indeed.
Thank you very much indeed, Father Peter-John Pearson. All the best to you and yours for the rest of 2022. Joining us this afternoon. Sorry, I'm used to South African morning. Father Peter-John Pearson, Director of the Southern African Catholic Bishops' Conference, looking back on the life and legacy of the late Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu.